The 6 powerful habits that strengthen memory in old age. Have you ever walked into a room and forgotten why you were there, or struggled to recall the name of someone you just met? It's easy to brush off these moments as simple forgetfulness, a natural part of aging, but what if these tiny lapses were warning signs of something more serious? What if right now your brain was slowly losing its sharpness without you even realizing it? This was exactly what happened to Linda Miller, an independent, vibrant woman who never thought twice about her memory. At first, it was little things, misplacing her keys, forgetting appointments. But one day she found herself standing in the middle of the street, completely lost, unable to remember why she had left home in the first place. That was the moment Linda knew something had to change. But here's the good news. Memory decline is not inevitable. Linda refused to accept it, and instead, she discovered 6 powerful yet simple habits that rewired her brain, sharpened her thinking, and restored her confidence. Today, we'll walk you through these game-changing habits, proven by science and backed by real experience. So stay with us until the end, because what you'll learn today could change your life. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and let's dive in. Habit 1. Grounding. Walking barefoot on earth. The ancient Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu once said, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." For centuries, sages and healers across cultures understood something we seem to have forgotten. Our connection to the earth is essential for balance, health, and clarity of mind. The Greeks walked barefoot in their sacred temples, believing that direct contact with the ground allowed them to absorb the earth's wisdom. Indigenous cultures worldwide practiced grounding as a way to align body and spirit. Today we rush through life, shoes between us and the soil, concrete beneath our feet. But science is now confirming what the ancients already knew: walking barefoot can heal us. Studies show it reduces inflammation, improves circulation, and even enhances brain function. But beyond the science, there's something deeper, a forgotten truth about who we are and what we've lost. I still remember the day I watched my best friend John crumble, not from old age, but from a lifetime of disconnection. John Reynolds was a man of ambition, the type who built his life on achievements, money, career, status. He was always running, chasing the next big thing, the next success, always convinced that the best version of life was just one step ahead. We grew up together, barefoot kids in the countryside, running through fields, climbing trees, feeling the earth beneath our feet. But somewhere along the way, life happened. We grew up. Shoes went on. Concrete roads replaced the dirt paths of our childhood. John left our little town, moved to the city, and got caught up in the race, the kind where you never slow down, never stop to breathe. Years passed, and I stayed behind while John built an empire. We talked less, life pulling us in different directions. But one day, out of the blue, he called. His voice was different, tired, hollow, lost. "I don't know what's wrong with me," he admitted. "I have everything I ever wanted, but I feel disconnected, like I'm not even real anymore." I could hear something in his voice, something I'd never heard before. Fear. Joan came back home for a visit not long after that. He was different. Slower, distracted, a man who had lost himself. He told me about the stress, the anxiety, the way his mind felt like it was slipping. He'd spent a lifetime chasing, but now he couldn't even remember what he was chasing. One evening I took him to the place where we used to play as boys, a quiet meadow, untouched by time. The sun was setting, the sky turning to gold, and I did something simple. I took off my shoes and stood there, letting the earth meet my skin. "Take them off, John," I said. He hesitated, but after a long silence he bent down, unlaced his expensive leather shoes, and placed them beside mine. And then he stood there. For a moment, nothing happened. Then he took a deep breath, and another, and suddenly it was like watching a man remember something he had forgotten for decades. Tears welled in his eyes. "God," he whispered. "I haven't felt this in years." We stood there for a long time, saying nothing, just feeling. Over the next few months, John changed. He started spending time in nature, walking barefoot in his backyard, letting the earth remind him of something deeper than success, his own existence. He slowed down. His mind grew sharper, his anxiety lessened. He started to feel alive again. But life has its own way of teaching us lessons, sometimes too late. A year later, John was gone. A heart attack. All that stress, All those years spent disconnected had taken their toll. At his funeral I looked down at my shoes, then took them off, standing barefoot in the grass as we laid him to rest. It was the least I could do to honor the boy we once were, the one who had once felt the earth before the world convinced him not to. We spend our lives chasing things that don't last, money, recognition, power, while ignoring the simplest, most healing connection we have, the earth, the same ground that holds our past, our memories, our loved ones. If you're feeling lost, overwhelmed, disconnected, maybe it's not your mind that's the problem. Maybe it's your feet. Maybe you need to step away from the noise, the rush, the distractions, and simply stand still. So, tell me, when was the last time you felt the earth beneath your feet? Have you ever noticed how it changes the way you think, the way you feel? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, because sometimes the answers we seek aren't found in books or doctors' offices. Sometimes they're right beneath us. Habit 2. The Golden Tonic, Brain-Boosting Nutrition. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, once said, "Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food." The ancients understood that true healing comes not from pills or potions, but from the earth itself. In India, Ayurvedic healers have used turmeric for over 4,000 years to fight disease and sharpen the mind. The Mayans and Aztecs drank cacao for strength, calling it the food of the gods. Ancient Greeks mixed cinnamon and black pepper into their remedies, believing these spices kept the body warm and the mind clear. Today, modern science is proving what our ancestors knew: the right foods can heal the brain, protect memory, and even reverse cognitive decline. But in today's world, we've traded these natural gifts for something else entirely: fast food, processed sugar, and artificial chemicals. And we're paying the price. If you had met Margaret 30 years ago, you would have sworn she had the energy of a woman half her age. She ran a little bakery downtown, waking up before sunrise to knead dough and roll out pastries by hand. Her apple pies were legendary, her cinnamon rolls could make a grown man cry, and her kitchen always smelled of something warm, something real. She believed in real food, nothing from a box, nothing artificial. She used butter instead of margarine, cane sugar instead of the refined kind. She had a philosophy about it: if it didn't come from the earth, it doesn't belong in your body. And she lived by that. Until life got in the way. Margaret's bakery closed when big chain supermarkets took over, flooding the town with cheap, pre-packaged pastries, the kind that lasted months on a shelf, full of things she couldn't even pronounce. The world had changed, and it changed her with it. She stopped cooking the way she used to. It was easier to grab a can of soup than to make broth from scratch. Frozen dinners replaced slow-cooked stews, and little by little something inside her shifted. At first she just felt tired all the time. Then came the aches, the stiffness in her joints. But worst of all, her mind, the sharp, witty mind that once remembered every recipe by heart, began to fade. It started with small things: misplacing her keys, forgetting names. Then one day she stood in her own kitchen, staring at a bag of flour, unable to remember what she was about to make. Her doctor gave her the usual advice: eat better, exercise, get more sleep. But what did eating better even mean anymore? The world had filled her plate with chemicals, preservatives, and toxins disguised as food. She had spent years unknowingly feeding her body things that were hurting her. Then, one day, her granddaughter came to visit. A bright young woman studying nutrition, she looked at Margaret's pantry with concern. "Grandma," she said, pulling out a box of processed oatmeal, "why don't we make something real, something like you used to?" Margaret hesitated. It had been so long since she had cooked for her health, rather than just to fill her stomach. That afternoon, her granddaughter showed her something called the Golden Tonic, a simple drink made of turmeric, coconut oil, black pepper, cacao, and cinnamon. "It fights inflammation," she explained, "helps the brain. Think of it like medicine, but the kind that actually tastes good." Margaret took a sip. Warm, spiced, familiar. The first time, she didn't feel much, but she kept drinking it, every morning, every night. And slowly, things changed. Her joints hurt less. Her thoughts became clearer. The fog in her mind, the one that had been slowly creeping in, began to lift. And one morning she woke up before the sun, just like she used to. She rolled up her sleeves, pulled out a bag of flour, and for the first time in years, she remembered exactly what she wanted to bake. The food we eat isn't just fuel, it's information. It tells our body how to heal or how to break down. It sharpens the mind or it dulls it. Margaret had forgotten who she was, not just because of time, but because of what she put in her body. And she's not alone. Look around. How many people do you know who struggle with fatigue, brain fog, aching joints? How many have accepted it as just part of aging, when in reality it's a consequence of what we've fed ourselves? It's not too late to change. So tell me, do you believe food has the power to heal? Have you ever felt a difference when you switch to real, natural ingredients? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories, because the more we learn from each other, the more we can heal together. Habit 3. Music as a memory catalyst. Plato once said, "Music is the movement of sound to reach the soul for the education of its virtue." In ancient Greece, music was considered a divine gift, capable of healing both mind and body. The Egyptians played harps to soothe the sick, while Native American shamans used rhythmic drumming to restore balance to the spirit. Even Confucius believed that a well-ordered society depended on the harmony of music. Today, modern science echoes this wisdom. Music has the power to awaken dormant memories, rewire the brain, and bring the past back to life. But in a world that moves too fast, where silence is replaced by noise, have we forgotten the songs that made us who we are? The day Henry stopped listening to music was the day something inside him began to die. He was never one for modern noise, those songs on the radio full of fast beats and empty words. No, Henry loved real music, the kind that told a story, the kind that made you feel something. As a young man, he had been inseparable from his record player. He'd sit by the window on rainy afternoons, letting the warm hum of a saxophone fill the room. He'd dance with his wife Maria under the soft glow of the kitchen light, their bodies swaying to the rhythm of Sinatra. Music wasn't just background noise, it was woven into the fabric of his life. But then, life did what life does. Maria passed away. The house fell quiet. And Henry, once a man of melodies, let silence take over. At first, he didn't notice the change. The records gathered dust, the radio stayed off. Days turned into weeks, weeks into years. His world became muted. Then came the forgetting. It started with small things, misplacing keys, struggling to recall names. But soon, the gaps widened. He would lose his train of thought mid-sentence. He'd walk into rooms and forget why. One winter afternoon he stood at the mailbox, unsure of where he was, unsure of why he was holding an envelope in his hands. That was when his daughter Emily knew something was wrong. She took him to the doctor, who confirmed what she already feared, early-stage dementia. "I don't understand," Henry said. "How do you lose something that's always been a part of you?" Emily didn't have an answer. But she did have an idea. One evening as Henry sat in his armchair staring blankly at the window, she quietly walked over to his old record player. She wiped off the dust, placed a worn-out vinyl on the turntable, and lowered the needle. And then, the first few notes of Moon River filled the room. Henry blinked, his hands trembled, and for the first time in years his eyes lit up. He closed his eyes, and suddenly, he wasn't sitting in a dimly lit living room. He was 25 again, dancing with Maria. He could see her, clear as day, the way she laughed, the way her dress twirled as he spun her around. He could hear her voice, whispering his name, and just like that, the past wasn't lost anymore. From that day forward, Emily made sure music became part of Henry's life again. She played his old records in the mornings, humming along as she made breakfast. She put headphones over his ears at night, letting the melodies tuck him into sleep. And Henry? He started to remember things again. Maybe not everything, but more than before. The doctors called it a miracle. Science called it neuroplasticity, the ability of music to awaken dormant pathways in the brain. But Henry called it something simpler. "Maria never left," he said one evening. "I just needed to hear her voice again." Henry's story isn't unique. Across the world, studies have shown that music has the power to reignite memory, heal emotional wounds, and reconnect us with who we once were. Patients with dementia can suddenly recall lyrics to songs they haven't heard in decades. Soldiers with PTSD find comfort in melodies that remind them of home. Even in our lowest moments, the right song can lift us, ground us, and bring us back to ourselves. But in today's world, have we lost touch with music that truly moves us? Have we traded soul-stirring melodies for fleeting noise? I ask you this: when was the last time a song truly took you back? When was the last time music made you feel something real? Share your thoughts in the comments. What song holds the most memories for you? Let's bring back the melodies that shaped us, one story at a time. Habit 4. Physical movement. Walking to reignite the brain. Aristotle once said, "Walking is a man's best medicine." The ancient Greeks believed that movement wasn't just for the body, it was essential for sharpening the mind. Great philosophers like Socrates and Plato held discussions while walking, believing that ideas flowed more freely with the rhythm of their steps. Even in Eastern traditions, the Shaolin monks practiced walking meditation, using movement to clear the mind and cultivate inner strength. Today, science confirms what the ancients knew. Walking increases blood flow to the brain, forms new neural connections, and even reduces the risk of dementia. But in our modern world, we've become too still, too stagnant, too detached from the power of movement. There was a time when Helen never sat still. As a young woman, she danced through life, rushing to work, climbing stairs, chasing after her children, with laughter spilling from her lips. Even as she got older, she made it a point to take evening strolls with her husband, their hands intertwined as they watched the sunset. Walking wasn't just exercise, it was a part of who she was. But then, life caught up with her. Her husband passed away, her children moved to different states, caught up in their own lives. And slowly, without realizing it, Helen stopped moving. At first it was subtle. She sat for longer periods. She spent more time in front of the TV, flipping through channels without really watching. When she did get up, her legs felt heavier, her balance unsteady. "I'm just getting old," she told herself. Then one day, something happened. Helen was reaching for a glass of water when she lost her footing. The next thing she knew, she was on the floor. The doctor called it a minor fall, but for Helen it was a wake-up call. She had once been a woman who moved with ease, and now her own legs had betrayed her. Her granddaughter Lily saw the change in her. She saw how Helen's world had grown smaller, how she hesitated before standing up, how she avoided walking unless she absolutely had to. One evening, Lily sat beside her and said, "Grandma, let's go for a walk." Helen scoffed. "At my age, I'd rather not risk falling again." But Lily was persistent. She convinced Helen to start small, just a few steps outside the front door. At first it felt strange, almost unnatural. Helen's legs ached, her breath came quicker than she remembered. But Lily held her hand and said, "One step at a time, Grandma, just one." And so she did. One, then another. At first they only made it to the mailbox and back, then down the street, then around the block. Each day they went a little farther, a little longer, and something incredible happened. Helen started to feel alive again. Her mind, once foggy and forgetful, became clearer, her mood lifted, the aches in her body lessened. Science would say it was because of increased blood flow, endorphins, and the formation of new neural pathways. But Helen knew it was something more. With every step she was reclaiming a part of herself that she had lost. Weeks passed, and soon Helen didn't need Lily to hold her hand anymore. She walked on her own, taking in the fresh air, feeling her heart beat with strength she thought she had lost forever. She wasn't just walking. She was remembering how to live. We spend years building a life, only to sit and watch it slip away. But movement, simple, steady movement, can bring it all back. Helen thought she had lost herself, but in reality, she had just stopped moving, and she's not alone. Look around. How many people have surrendered to stillness? How many have let life shrink because they stopped using their legs, their bodies, their breath? Maybe it's time to change that. Tell me, when was the last time you took a walk, not for exercise, but just to feel alive? Have you ever experienced the power of movement in healing your mind and body? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's remind each other that as long as we can move, we are still here. Habit 5. Mental challenges. Keeping the brain active. The Roman philosopher Seneca once said, "The mind that is not exercised withers away." The ancient Greeks believed in mental gymnastics, engaging in debates, riddles, and philosophical puzzles to sharpen their intellect. The great Chinese strategist Sun Tzu taught that a battle is won in the mind, before it is fought on the battlefield. Even in medieval times, scholars trained their memory with complex poems and logic problems, believing that a sharp mind was the key to a strong life. Today, research confirms what the ancients knew. Mental challenges like puzzles, crosswords, and logic games create new neural connections, slowing down brain aging and reducing the risk of dementia. But in a world where convenience has replaced curiosity, have we let our minds grow dull? Walter used to be the sharpest man in the room. He could fix anything: cars, radios, even the old clock at the town square. He had a mind that worked like a well-oiled machine, taking things apart, figuring out how they fit together. But life has a funny way of stealing things from us when we're not looking. After he retired, Walter stopped using his hands and, without realizing it, he also stopped using his mind. No more problem-solving, no more tinkering in the garage. His days became routine, predictable, empty. At first he didn't notice the change, but then, little things started slipping away. A name he should have remembered. A grocery list he couldn't recall. He'd walk into a room and forget why. That's just getting old, he told himself, until one day something happened that shook him to his core. Walter had always prided himself on knowing the streets of his town better than anyone. He could drive them blindfolded. But one afternoon, as he was heading home from the store, he realized something terrifying. He didn't recognize where he was. The streets were familiar, but they didn't make sense. The turns felt wrong. For the first time in his life, Walter was lost in his own town. He pulled over, gripping the steering wheel as panic set in. How could this happen? How could a man who once knew every shortcut, every street corner, suddenly feel like a stranger in his own home? When he finally found his way back, he sat in silence, staring at the table where his old crossword books used to sit. He had thrown them away years ago, thinking he didn't need them anymore. That evening, his grandson Jake came to visit. Walter didn't tell him what had happened, but something in his face must have given it away. "Grandpa," Jake said, pulling a puzzle book from his backpack. "Want to do one with me?" Walter almost laughed. A puzzle? At his age? What was the point? But Jake insisted, so he humored him. At first, the words came slow, his brain struggling to wake up from years of inactivity. But as they filled in the blanks together, something strange happened. Walter felt like himself again. A memory surfaced. Him as a young man, solving newspaper crosswords with his late wife over morning coffee. He had forgotten how much he loved the challenge, the way his brain lit up when it found the right answer. So he started again. Every morning he made it a habit: one crossword, one logic puzzle, one brain teaser. The more he challenged himself, the sharper he became. Weeks passed, and one day Walter noticed something remarkable. His mind was working again. His memory improved, his thinking became clearer, and most importantly, he never got lost again. Walter almost let his mind fade into silence, but a simple habit brought him back. He didn't need a miracle, just a reason to think again. The truth is, our brains are built to be used. The moment we stop challenging them, they start shrinking. And yet, how many of us have abandoned curiosity for convenience? How many let our minds atrophy, telling ourselves it's just old age when, in reality, it's neglect? Maybe it's time to change that. Tell me, what's your favorite way to challenge your mind? Do you do puzzles, read, play games, or something else? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep our minds sharp, together. Habit 6. The Power of Faith and Gratitude. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In times of hardship, ancient sages turned to faith and gratitude, not as empty rituals, but as powerful tools to reshape the mind. The Psalms speak of thanksgiving as a path to peace, while the Buddha taught that gratitude was the foundation of joy. Even in war-torn societies, people have survived the worst of times not by focusing on their suffering, but by holding on to faith, giving thanks for what remains, and believing in what is still possible. Today, modern science echoes this wisdom. Studies show that gratitude lowers stress, improves sleep, and even strengthens memory. But in a world that glorifies complaints and comparisons, have we forgotten how to be truly thankful? Linda had always been a woman of faith. She wasn't loud about it, didn't preach to others, but her belief was steady, a quiet, unwavering light that guided her through life's storms. Then, life tested her. First, it was her husband's passing. The man she had built a life with, the one who held her hand through every hardship, was suddenly gone. Then, her best friend moved to a retirement home across the country. And finally, the cruelest blow, her memory began slipping little by little like sand through her fingers. At first she convinced herself it was nothing. A forgotten name here, a misplaced item there, but then came the day she forgot her own phone number, the day she stared at her reflection in the mirror and, for a fleeting second, couldn't remember her own face. Fear crept in. What would happen to her if her mind continued to fade? Would she become a burden to her children? Would she wake up one day and not recognize the people she loved? For the first time in her life, Linda felt truly alone. One evening, overwhelmed by despair, she did something she hadn't done in a long time. She prayed. Not with grand words or formal requests, but simply by closing her eyes and whispering, "God help me." And then, something changed. Not suddenly, not in a dramatic revelation, but in small, almost imperceptible ways. The next morning she woke up and, instead of drowning in fear, she did something different. She gave thanks. She thanked God for another day, for the warmth of the sun on her skin, for the sound of birds outside her window, for the cup of tea in her hands. Every day, no matter how small, she found something to be grateful for. And slowly, her fear began to loosen its grip. She started writing things down, little memories, thoughts, moments of joy. She kept a journal by her bedside, and every night before bed, she wrote down 3 things she was grateful for. And something miraculous happened. Her mind grew stronger. The more she focused on gratitude, the clearer her thoughts became. The fog that once clouded her mind began to lift. Science would say it was because practicing gratitude reduces stress hormones and strengthens neural connections in the brain. But Linda knew it was something more. It was faith. Faith that, even in the darkest moments, there was still light to be found. Faith that, even as life changed, there were still reasons to be thankful. Faith that no matter what happened, she was not alone. Linda could have let fear consume her. She could have given in to despair. But instead she chose gratitude. And she's not the only one. Studies show that people who practice gratitude live longer, have sharper minds, and experience less anxiety. Yet in today's world, we've become so focused on what we lack, what we fear, what's wrong, that we forget to see what's right. So, I ask you, what are you grateful for today? Leave a comment below, because the more we share our gratitude, the stronger we all become. Linda's story is a reminder that our minds are not lost causes. Even in the face of forgetfulness, even when life tests us, we have the power to fight back. Not with fear, but with small, intentional habits. A morning walk, a golden tonic, a song from the past, a puzzle that makes you think, a simple prayer, a quiet moment of gratitude. Every step we take toward better brain health is a step toward a clearer, more vibrant life. But now, I want to hear from you. Which of these habits speaks to you the most? Have you ever experienced the power of movement, music, or gratitude in sharpening your mind? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's learn from each other, because when we share wisdom, we keep our minds alive. And if you found this video valuable, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the best gift we can give ourselves is knowledge that helps us live fully.